Welcome back. Been quite a while since my last upload. I didn't die, don't worry. I'm sure all four of you were waiting with bated breath to see my next exciting video. So what have I been doing? Well, I've recently been going down a TF2 rabbit hole in quite a few ways here. So I'm going to start from the beginning. Bit of a stories time here. While I was playing on some community servers, I made an observation about King of the Hill that I found pretty interesting, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone mention before. And that being the answer to the following question here. How many King of the Hill maps did Valve actually make for the mode? I mean, how many of them are original to the mode and not just retoolings of maps from other game modes? Well, one thing led to another, and I ended up making a massive spreadsheets for a bunch of different things, so let's get into the findings. First, to answer the question I just posed a moment ago, the answer is, one. There's only one single map from Valve that's original for Koth, and that's Viaduct. Most of the rest were just retooled arena maps. But that's not specific enough, so here's the list. I'll put it on screen for you now. The ones I colored blue are originally arena maps, and the ones I colored orange, those ones are holiday restricted. And even just taking a look at this data here, it provides something interesting, right? Well, Valve has only put out 4 year-round Koth maps. You'd think for a game mode with so many maps for it in-game, there'd be way more than that from Valve, but spoilers, we'll get back to that. So, where does the data go from here? Well, after King of the Hill, I looked at all game modes and looked at how many of them this also applies to, so let's see it. For reference, I'm going to be listing all the stats in order of game mode from release from here on out, so that's launch, then 2008, 2009, etc. So let's quickly go through the order of game modes released, and that goes: launch, we have Capture the Flag, Attack Defend, Territorial Control, and Control Points. And then after launch, we get in order: Payload, Arena, Payload Race, King of the Hill, Medieval Mode, Special Delivery, Man vs. Machine, Domination, Robot Destruction, technically, Manpower, Player Destruction, Pastime, versus Saxon Hail, Zombie Infection, Tug of War, Hold the Flag, and Attack Defend Payload, whatever the fuck you want to even call Gavel. So then how many maps do we have from Valve per game mode here? And how many of them are original to that mode? Well, for that, I got another chart for you here. And as you can see, we have 4 for Capture the Flag, with only 2 of them being original. Attack Defend has 4 total maps, technically 6 if you want to count 2 versions of Mountain Lab as Valve maps, but I'm not going to do that because for the purposes of this video, those are community maps. So altogether, that's 4 because those 4 maps are original, so that's pretty neat. Territorial Control is just Hydro, yeah. Control Points has 6 Valve maps with only 5 Gorge being unoriginal, and the rest completely original. Payload, all 6 of them are original, including Cactus Canyon. And then Arena has 7 Valve maps with only 4 of them being original. Payload Race has a whole 3 maps from Valve, 2 of which are original. King of the Hill, as I stated, has only 1 original map, and 7 maps total. Technically 6, but for some reason Harvest Event counts as a Valve map? I don't know. Only 1 medieval map from Valve, and of course, True Keep. Special Delivery only has 2 Valve maps, but you know, one of them is Doomsday, one of them is Carnival of Carnage, Olivia Reskin. MVM has 7 maps, and all but Ghost Town are original. And fun fact for you there, Ghost Town is not Halloween restricted. I'm sure 99% of you knew that, but hey, you never know there, right? Domination has no Valve maps because that's stand-in. Robot Destruction is only Asteroid, and that is a Valve map, but it's unfinished, but I'm still going to count it. Manpower has 4 maps, and only Hellfire is original. And lastly, Pastime has 3 maps, and I am going to count these as Valve maps because who else am I supposed to credit for these? A foreign company? I'm not crediting Bad Robot for this, nor can I say these are community maps, so these are Valve maps for all intents and purposes. Oh, and of course, they're all original. They're all original. Everything past Pastime is all community made, so there's not really a purpose in me going through those. At least not yet. Now, if you've been paying attention, you might be thinking to yourself, man, seems like we got a big drop-off from Valve here, huh? But Words Alone I know aren't exactly going to cut this here, so let me throw another nice graph on screen to really paint the picture. And looking at it this way, God, does it make it more obvious. On average, it seems to be that the further from launch you get with game modes, the less and less Valve supports it with original content. I mean, shit, they never even finished the 2 beta maps they had during Quick Play. Those they just threw away like a broken toy when they were done with them. Well, done implies they're finished, but, you know. Now, there are 2 outliers here. First is Territorial Control, which despite being a launch game mode, should probably be self-explanatory why they didn't support it further. Mega unpopular game mode equals no support. Simple as. Second is Man vs. Machine, and this one is where I think the larger picture begins to be painted here. Man vs. Machine got just as many original maps as Payload, and those all came out within the same 2012 to 2013 time frame. So it's really highly likely that the maps were all being developed alongside one another, like how the original launch TF2 maps were. But what does that mean in the wider context of this TF2 discussion? Well, if we look at that graph again, maybe it'll be more obvious. MVM was initially teased in 2010 in the Engineer Update teaser trailer. In the trailer, we got pictures of some robots, which would indicate that the progress on the update was pretty far along. And again, this was 2010, so who's to say that they hadn't been working on it since at least 2009 even? I'll say this much though, MVM almost certainly had a big hand in why the post-launch map additions from Valve grew thinner and thinner every year. The TF team was never particularly large, especially post-launch compared to Valve's other projects. Then you take this already smaller team and then need people to create a whole new game inside of TF2 in the form of MVM, and then what does that do, right? And it's not just a new game mode. MVM functions fundamentally differently from the rest of TF2 since it's PvE and not PvP. A little bit of speculating from me here, but I have much reason to believe that MVM was an all-hands-on-deck sort of deal for TF2, where most of the game's workers were tasked with making the content for this, and very few were left to work on other tasks, such as adding new weapons, and of course, maps. It isn't that big of a stretch to say that a lot of the artists were likely taken to work on MVM, because just look at how every map in the NG update looked. Boxy, tons of mismatched textures, weird geometry all around, etc. Honestly, it feels like all three maps were spearheaded by one guy, since they all have visual similarities and ideas in their structures and layout. Said one guy was probably just a level designer though, which would explain why a map like Hightower looks a bit funky, right? Again, is this just speculation? Yes, but it is a plausible and sound enough theory that I figured I'd share it. Again though, just look at how many new Valve maps per game mode we get post-launch. For the launch modes, the trajectory of how many maps are added makes sense. Not too many capture the flag or territorial control, but plenty of control points in attack defense. Post-launch game modes though, and for payload we get quite a few, but those are spread out over the course of several years, and the next is Arena, and that mode is insanely front-loaded, where all of the Valve original maps, and most of the community maps for that matter, were added in 2008 and 2009 for it. I mean shit, with how many maps were added for Arena mode alone within its first year of existence in-game, you'd think it was the best game mode ever. And then after that, 2 original payload race maps, 1 original King of the Hill, 1 special delivery, an unfinished one for Robot Destruction. You get the picture. Basically nothing original for these game modes being produced by Valve, with the exception of Man vs. Machine. But like I said before, MVM is basically an entirely separate game from base TF2, so it kind of better have more than just 1 or 2 maps for it. So then what? Valve has stopped supporting the game with new maps of their making, we all know that much. Well, let me just present to you some numbers here. Excluding training mode shit, Valve has 56 maps in-game. Now, altogether in-game, there are 222 maps as of the making of this video. 56 out of the 222 maps in-game are made by Valve. That means roughly only 25% of all TF2 maps are Valve-made, which then obviously means that 75% of all maps in-game are community-made. And with each update that passes, that disparity is only going to grow larger and larger. But wait just a second. When did that even happen? When did this divide become so huge? Math jump scare! Sorry. This chart shows that year by year. Too much number? Here, have a bar graph instead. Gets the point across all the same. From 2000 to 2014, the ratio of Valve to community was relatively balanced, with there being more Valve than community maps in-game. But then we see this humongous, giant spike in 2015, and this is where community maps start to outpace the Valve ones. It does go back down after 2015, but the trend is still visible. Next to no new Valve maps get added to the game in the following 2 years, and then post-2017, never again do we receive another Valve map. But as you see, in Valve's absence, they really double down on community content. From 2018 to 2022, we got a pretty noticeable increase in the amount of community content on average compared to previous years. And then, of course, there is the nuclear bomb that is 2023, adding literally 36 maps to the game, all of which are community-made, obviously. 2024 and 2025 would dial it back slightly, but they still added way more maps than previous years, at 23 and 21 respectively. But man, just looking at those numbers makes you think. Think things like, how much did the past 5 years contribute to the total size of the map pool in TF2? Well, I have an answer, and you might have already heard it before from other people. But here we go. Out of the 222 maps we have in-game, again, barring training mode garbage and such, 50% of them were added in the past 5 years. And I do mean an even 50%. 111 maps were added to TF2 from the years 2020 to 2025. That is frightening stuff, really. But that doesn't paint the fullest of pictures here. While yes, there are 111 maps added, not all of them are here year-round. In fact, a lot of them aren't. But how many? I'll spare you the grass for this and just tell you that 40 of them are Halloween restricted and 17 of them are Smithmas restricted. So altogether, that's 57 out of 111 maps from the past 5 years that are holiday restricted in some form. Which, by the way, Scream Fortress only has 60 maps exclusive to it. That means about 67%, or 2/3 of all Scream Fortress maps are from the past 5 years alone. And not to mention that all Smithmas content is exclusive to that time period too, since we never had Smithmas original content before 2020. So for some perspective here, that's 81 holiday restricted maps at this point in time out of 222 maps. Want to know the percentage on that one? Roughly 35%, or a little over a third, of all maps in TF2 are holiday restricted. And again, it bears repeating that these numbers are only going to get larger every year since the TF2 map train shows no signs of stopping. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that sounds to me like overrepresentation. Massive overrepresentation. 51% of all maps added in the past few years have been holiday restricted. That is over half! We've all seen how nightmarish this has made things. The matchmaker self-destructing during Scream Fortress, the overwhelming amount of contracts, and so on. Is this healthy? This seems like too much of a good thing if you ask me. But this is something I'm sure everybody's heard before, so what about something a little more interesting? Recently, I helped fellow TF2 YouTuber Nonleth categorize all the maps in the game based on themes, which he showcases in his video that I am plastering all over the screen right now, with a link to it in the description, plus the list we made. Wink!
Whoops! Incoming message!
Hey, so I made that Meet Your Match video, and as I get to work on the other one, I am sick as fuck! I think it infected me.
Anyway, in our discoveries we learned some rather interesting things. As to not cannibalize his video, I have my own unique inputs to say here. Do bear in mind that this list only covers original maps, so there being 3 different versions of Sawmill won't affect the total number of Alpine maps, as we only counted it once. So let's start with that Scream Fortress overrep that I mentioned. If we take every map theme into account, Halloween has 60 for its category obviously, since every map for Scream Fortress is Halloween aesthetically. But how does that compare with the rest of the game? Well, compared to the highest category for non-holiday maps, having 60 maps be Halloween themed is double the first placer for year-round. That first placer being Alpine, with 29 maps in its theme. Sheesh! Really paints a picture there, huh? But that got me curious. When did most of the different themes get added? How many were added over time? We have a pretty diverse list of themes in TF2, and some people say that perhaps we get too many of certain themes. But what does that look like? Well, I decided to do some more spreadsheeting and graphing, and came up with this. Colorful, ain't it? Let's get down to business. Aside from Halloween and Christmas, we agreed that there are 26 predominant themes in TF2. But how did we get to 26? 2007 only initially gave us 4 main themes, being Industrial, Farmland, Desert, and Badlands. So when did we start getting total theme overload? Well, there are a few notable hotspots to point to. 2009 gave us 4 new themes, including Spy Tech with Junction, Egyptian with Egypt, Autumn with Harvest, and a fan favorite of Snowy with Viaduct. Aside from Snowy, those other themes are very seldom used as primary themes for maps in-game. Second notable hotspot is 2015, which takes it a big step up, giving it 5 new themes for TF2. Those being Jungle, Japan, Quake, Forest, and Arctic. And then from there, we don't really receive any more than 2 to 3 new themes from any particular years. It's worth noting that a good portion of themes in TF2 are one-offs or have less than 5 maps total for them. But here's something I found really interesting. With all this talk of new themes, what about the Classic 4? How many of those do we get throughout the years? And how often are we getting them? For Industrial, we get plenty, and we have a map or 2 for most years to represent it. It's a pretty broad descriptor after all. So what then of Farmland? I'm sorry to all you farmers out there, but we really don't have much here. We got the initial showing in 2007, Harvest in 2009, and then we jump all the way to 2015 when we get 2 Farmland maps during Invasion Update, being Buyer and Probed. By the way, you can't even play Buyer in Valve servers, Lamau. Then you gotta jump another 9 years before the game gets its next and final Farmland map, Applejack. So, okay, looks like we not only have a severe drought of Farmland maps in TF2, but this theme is super front-loaded to the early years of the game. So what about the Badlands? Surely that would get a ton of maps in super often, right? It's similar to a desert, and TF2 is synonymous with that. Well, to all you Badlands believers, I got some bad news, man. It shares that same 6 map score with Farmland and has a similar distribution. 1 Badlands themed map per year from launch to 2009, 2 in 2015, and then 1 more final one in 2023 with Phoenix. Okay, let's stop fucking around. What about the TF2 theme? Desert. With how broad a term that is, surely it's been properly represented through the years, right? Well, this one will probably serve as the biggest shock. But other than Camber and Tiny Rock in 2023, we have not received a single original desert map since Big Rock, all the way back in 2012. And if you don't want to count MVM, then it's still in 2012 with Doomsday. That is 11 years, no desert. 16 original desert maps in the game, and 87.5% of them were released from 2007 to 2012. That is incredibly, truly insane. It confounds me how people still peddle this claim that people who criticize TF2 maps just want more desert, as if we receive tons of desert maps and aren't in a drought of the OG themes. So, then what are the newer themes? How many of those did we get over time? There are obvious hotspots for some of these. Jungle as a theme, for instance, received the majority of its maps from Jungle Inferno, as well as receiving 4 more maps in the past 3 years. We've gotten more jungle maps in the past 9 years than we've gotten Farmland or Badlands maps over the entire lifespan of TF2. And what about the offshore maps from last year? Or the Tropic Crisis maps from the previous? These themed updates tend to bring in a lot of maps with a singular theme. Makes sense, as that's literally the point of these updates, but what does that look like in number terms? For ocean maps, there are 6 in-game, all coming from the past 2 years. Again, Badlands and Farmland also have 6 maps each. Should I keep harping on this? I feel like I need to, because I'm going crazy just looking at this, but let's keep going. What about smaller themes? Well, if the colorful nature of the graph charting these past few years says anything, it's that we certainly have a diversity of themes to see, but I do have to wonder something in spite of all of this. Do people even like getting this many themes all the time? Do they like receiving a TF2 lifetime's worth of ocean and jungle maps within the span of a few years? How many new maps per theme, and how many new themes per update is too much? When does it start to become overwhelming? And beyond themes, let's tie this all back to the numbers now. How many maps per update is too many? How many maps is too many? I cannot imagine that all of the new content we receive so often is producing zinger maps that everyone adores. In fact, I can prove fairly reasonably that they are not adored on average. As many of you watching hopefully know, a fellow TF2 YouTuber, Wheezy, a few months ago made a community-wide popularity poll for every non-restricted map in TF2 casual. And, needless to say, the results of the poll are very telling. For context, his poll garnered 3,453 unique responders, being the largest poll of its kind to date for TF2. Make sure to give his 2-part video series on it a watch, since I won't be going into too much detail specifics over individual maps. Plus, he's a cool dude, and deserves the views. Wheezy was kind enough to share with me the raw data from this video, which I've linked in the description, and there's a specific piece of data here that is the focal point of what I'm saying. That being, the yearly averages. Taking one look at that speaks for itself. Every single year post-Jungle Inferno that's eligible is rated as having the worst maps on average. The only exception to this is 2014, but that's only because that by excluding the beta maps and excluding Halloween maps released that year, you are literally only left with the manpower versions of Gorge and Thunder Mountain as maps to be added in 2014. Do I really need to explain why that would get the year ranked dead last? Hopefully not. And just to double prove this point, the rankings of only post-Jungle Inferno maps shows this general distaste as well, but as you can see here, it actually shows the map rankings themselves. Now, with all this in mind, I am not trying to say that we didn't receive any good maps post-Jungle Inferno. I'm just simply presenting the numbers as they are, and the numbers say how the people feel. So, those are the facts and numbers, but what to make of them? I have my own inputs on the matter, and I am sure some people may disagree. But for me, I do believe that everything I have shown in the video demonstrates multiple overlapping issues that have been plaguing TF2 and Valve's treatment of it for years. I did not go into this project thinking all of this. I had some displeasure with the state of the game, make no doubt about that, but only after seeing all these numbers laid out for me did I fully realize just how bad this was. Again, I must repeat that this all started because I just wanted to know if Viaduct was really the only King of the Hill original map that Valve made. But by finding out the answer to that question, I discovered a rabbit hole that went way, way deeper than I had expected. But that's alright, that's how these sorts of videos tend to start. Someone has an idea, they do some research, and it spirals into something much, much, much bigger. But that's my story. What about yours? You have questions like I did and want answers? Start digging, start researching. Chances are, you'll find more than you thought you would too. Make that YouTube video. Sharing those findings with the community is always a fun time, and, hopefully, a productive one too. The TF2 scene could use more thinkers. And, by the way, while I still have your attention, in the description you'll find a list of various links that lead to multiple cool community groups. You should check them out. Now's a better time than ever to give community servers a shot. Who knows, you might find yourself a new favorite server or two. But, for now, that is all she wrote. Thank you all again for watching. This is Kraig, signing out. Peace.